Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley commented on the hemorrhaging evidence surrounding Hunter Biden and the family business deals on Monday, criticizing the Democrats for calling to stop the investigation.
The more evidence we get, the louder the call is from the Democrats to stop any further investigation. Well, it really doesn't make much sense. I mean, we now have a very troubling picture that is composed of financial records with over $20 million that is being transferred through a myriad of accounts that seem overly complex. It seems like the only purpose of those accounts is to hide those transfers. You have what I think now is accepted as sort of open influence peddling by Hunter Biden.
Turley continued that the narrative has shifted. The media is now reporting that the young Biden was selling influence, but it was an illusion. Turley concluded that Merrick Garland and others were leaving Congress no choice. An impeachment inquiry was the way to go. The latest exposure showed Devon Archer met with then Secretary of State John Kerry a few weeks before Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin was fired for allegedly not prosecuting corruption. Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is outraged with Republicans over their failure to begin an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden after the National Archive admitted it had located 5,400 Biden emails, all connected to 3 aliases used by the then vice president. Greene expressed her desire to begin the inquiry the week Congress reconvenes. The Republican fumed that using an alias on a government network is not okay, adding, "I think it should be illegal. I do not think you can hide your identity." Greene blasted Biden for lying to the American people as revelations that the Robert Peters email account received an email in 2016 that CC'd Hunter Biden and included an attachment with the vice president's schedule and a record of him speaking with then president of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko. Greene noted that Biden was likely compromised. Greg?
Gold Star mother says Joe Biden alone is responsible for the botched withdrawal and resulting chaos in which a suicide bomber killed 13 members of the U.S. military in Kabul, Afghanistan 2 years ago. During a hearing on Capitol Hill on Tuesday, Paula Knauf herself said that President Joe Biden is responsible for the August 26, 21 attack that killed her son, Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Knauf, and 12 other service members.
President Biden and his executive cabinet must accept responsibility publicly for the chaotic withdrawal at the end of the 20-year war.
The families of 9 of the 13 fallen service members sternly demanded justice and an explanation.
There was a plan set in place before the previous administration had left. It was not planned by suits. It was planned by boots. And they were training for it, and training for it. They had it down. They had the contingency plans set in place. This administration walks in and blows it to kingdom come. Ignorance? To me, it is. Complete ignorance.
No member of the United States military has ever been reprimanded for the chaotic withdrawal and loss of life. Let's bring in the president of WallBuilders.com, co-author of the American Story Victory News contributor, Tim Barton. Tim, welcome back to Victory News.
Thanks, Greg.
You just heard 2 parents who lost their children in the airport bombing at Kabul airport. Here's one more that testified. Gold Star father Mark Schmitz.
Not a single person has been held accountable. Our so-called leader can't seem to even utter their names in public, not even once. Mr. Biden has run his entire political campaign for 50 years as the family man. Well, I've got news for you, sir. The curtain has been lifting, and that campaign slogan will never work again.
Mark Schmitz and those other parents who lost their children in the failed withdrawal want accountability and answers. Tim, will they ever receive them?
You know, under this administration, I'm not sure they will. And there's a lot of things that should be remembered surrounding this. There was no reason that we had to pull out of or withdraw by September 11th. Having that arbitrary date makes no sense. And in fact, September 11th is celebrated by many of the Islamic terrorists as a great anniversary. And so pulling out on an anniversary for them, it's an honoring thing for them, not for America, as America's acknowledging defeat. And this notion that it was an ongoing war, one of the challenges was there was no clearly defined expectations or boundaries for what victory was. So we don't know when do we achieve victory, but the reality is this notion that we shouldn't have troops in other nations, that's really kind of a silly notion, because currently we have 35,000 troops over in Germany. We have nearly 50,000 troops in Japan. And so this idea that we can't have American troops in some other nation, a nation that we've gone to war with, and we largely won that war, we're winning that war. There's a lot of inconsistencies, especially from the Biden administration. And as pointed out, nobody's been held accountable, which is a travesty of justice to this point.
It is. And I'm glad we're doing investigations. The parents are getting their voices heard. Democrats want House investigations stopped. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is stunned an impeachment inquiry has not begun. As an official, she's asking a real question. She spoke with Real America's Voice. Here it is.
Just ask the question. So I'm at home at my house in Rome. I've been at home hanging out with all of the great, wonderful, normal people that actually have a brain and have common sense and are asking me every day, Marjorie, when is Congress going to move on with this impeachment inquiry?
Yeah, and I hear from people every week as well. Greene believes that Speaker McCarthy will get this done when the House reconvenes. Would that inquiry take the air out of the Trump trials?
I don't know the media would cover it to the same extent they would for Trump, because the majority of the mainstream media is very Democrat left progressive leaning. Now, fortunately, there are other platforms, whether it be a Tucker Carlson on what was formerly Twitter, now on X. There's obviously things like Victory News. There's a lot of other options out there where people can get this information, but mainstream media, whether it be a Fox, a CNN, et cetera, they probably would not cover to the extent they will cover Trump. So it won't take as much wind out of the sails for mainstream media, but the American people will certainly find out about it. And I think it would make a difference going forward.
Okay, you mentioned Tucker Carlson. He has a new interview on Twitter, now X, with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He spoke out on the mistake the United States and NATO are making in their surrogate war with Russia in Ukraine. Here that is.
This is a bad strategy. We have to stop it. We cannot beat them. They will not kill their leader. They will never give it up. They will invest more. It's a joke. It's a very dangerous moment now.
That's obvious to you.
Not just for me, everybody on the street. The Third World War knocking on our door.
Prime Minister Orban says Putin will only keep investing money in military in the Ukraine invasion. So what does that spell for the United States and NATO going forward?
Well, I think it's not good at all. The reality that we now have a weak president who is not taking any kind of leadership position on this, who is sending so much aid and money. When you consider what's happened in Hawaii and Maui and the damage and destruction, I have a good friend who was over there this last week and came back with just the horror stories of what people are going through. Now, there's also a lot of positive. That God is doing so much and helping so many people over in Maui, but the reality is President Biden said he would send each individual $700, whereas we've sent over $100 billion to Ukraine. President Biden is not taking a leadership role in this, and we are on the verge of what very likely could be World War III. There's a lot of military veterans, a lot of military experts who are talking about the dangers of this, because Putin was kept in check by President Trump, but Biden's not going to keep Putin in check. And when Putin has that many nuclear weapons, that is a real danger.
It is a danger, and we definitely need to keep praying and keep our eye on it. Tim Barton, thank you so much. Back to you in just a moment.